Welcome back to the Artie Lange Show. Another segment here with Kevin Smith. Kev, the first time me and you met,
yes, sir,
was at a New Year's Eve party at Howard Stern's penthouse apartment in Manhattan.
Right.
And us smokers went to relieve ourselves in a back room to smoke with the window open. John Popper, lead singer from the Blues Travelers, comes back there, and it was me and this girl Denise, who I was dating at the time, very sweet girl, and Kevin. Now, did you have your wife there, a girlfriend or somebody there?
Jennifer, my wife.
Your wife was there, and John Popper comes in the back with some crazy maniac woman he was dating. Do you remember she was kind of nuts, the girl he was dating?
She was very animated, to say the least, and very, very gregarious, friendly, and whatnot.
Yeah,
and just chatty, and happy to be there.
Very happy, yeah. And so we got all that going on, and Popper, we're huddled up in this beautiful apartment
and this
by a window.
Popper, by the way, this thin Popper.
Yeah, right. It was after he got the operation.
He dropped all the way, because I remember that whole night I was like, dude, like this looks like the answer, and he's like, never do this. He's like, I feel like I was shot in the gut. He's like, it was the worst feeling in the world.
He really was not an advocate of it. I remember that. Yeah. So. We got the window open, we're smoking cigarettes, and Popper, right in the middle of it, pulls out you ever see those Secrets, like aspirin or Secrets cans? Yeah. He pulls out a can of that filled with weed, the most pungent, the strongest weed I ever smelled in my life to date. He just opened it up and was like, whoa, and rolled a joint. And did you partake in the joint?
That was before I was a stoner.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Maybe this caused you to get into it, because I took a couple of puffs. My girlfriend at the time was like, we're in somebody else's apartment. I'm like, I don't know.
You feel weird, too.
Yeah. But he started smoking the joint very casually, and I don't know. I was a little stressed out. I didn't know what to do at a party like that. It was a very classy, nice event, and I had a couple of puffs. My God, I was off the ceiling. Huddled up. It went from a beautiful, classy New York event at a penthouse to me, in a corner, like a junkie with John Popper smoking
They're
weed.
Like, who brought the weed?
It was that kind of weed.
What I remember about that night, I wasn't a stoner then, so I would have been like, wow, they're smoking weed. This is so hip, or something like that. What I remember about that night, though, was the woman who John Popper was dating.
She was nuts.
Very nutty.
Yeah.
At one point, my wife excused herself to go to the bathroom, and she was like, oh, I'll go too, in the way that girls go to the bathroom together. But she didn't know this woman that much, but whatever, she didn't think anything of it. But later on, she got out of the bathroom. She's like, we got to go. And I was like, what's the matter? She's like, it's just time to go. And I was like, all right, good night, everybody.
She was that crazy?
We left. I said, what happened? She goes, we went to the bathroom. She started putting the moves on me and stuff.
Oh, my God.
And I was like, can we go back to the apartment?
I don't remember her.
This was an option.
So got weed. You're a Hollywood director at this point. They got weed.
And I was the most timid one in the room. I was like, this is strange. So I remember, she'd hit on Jen, and I was like, is that... What was that like? Are you weirded out by that?
Yeah,
she was definitely cute, for
sure.
sure. But Jem was like, it was just, I don't know, it just kind of came out of the blue. She's really drunk or whatever. And then the PS to the story is like, God, maybe a year later, 2 years later, out of the blue, dude.
Yeah.
Is Kevin there? So yes, Kevin. Hi, I'm blah blah blah. You may not remember me. I was dating John Popper at Howard Stern's.
She called you?
She was doing her steps, dude. She was making amends.
Oh, no kidding.
And she was making amends to us. Like, we just met her that night.
She called you to do the 8th step.
I told her, I was like, look, you had a great time that night. We had a great time that night. Nothing weird happened, and you don't owe me and my wife anything. Because she's like, I heard you tell the story about me hitting on your wife in the bathroom, and I felt bad. I was like, oh, that's just a funny story, but I mean, don't you worry about it.
I mean, direct opposite. You were like, this is flattering.
Absolutely. I was just like, you owe us no apology whatsoever.
Wow, she was doing her amends.
She did. She went through and made her amends. And again, this is somebody we met and never saw again. And at first I was like, how did she get our phone number? But then regardless, I was happy for her. She got to a place of peace.
That is odd.
Yeah.
Because that makes me happy for it too, because I never heard that part of it. And if you told me right now what happened to her, I would say she's under a bridge in Pittsburgh or something. But she turned
it around, at least at one point.
I did the steps, a couple times, and I got to that point where I got the amends, and it's very That is odd that she chose you. It makes me think maybe because you're famous. I don't know.
Right?
That she
Like,
chose
now
you to do
now that we've cleared the air.
What's going on?
Are you making a Clerks 3 or something like that? It was a little strange, especially because I was like the amends, the way I understand it, like Jason Mewes, my friend, he's had troubles with drugs. He's been clean now, coming up on 3 years.
I was going to ask you, Jason Mewes, a hilarious guy. He's the J&J and Silent Bob.
Yeah.
Such a and you used him brilliantly in those movies, but he is such a talent and a unique guy and had similar problems I had, and he's doing good. That's great to hear.
We did this kind of, we still do it, this podcast together called Jay and Silent Bob Get Old, where essentially it's an intervention podcast. It's just like going to a meeting. So you'll sit there and talk about, he'll tell you horrific stories, and he'll do it with a sense of humor, and then like kind of bring you to where he is now in life and whatnot. So we structured this live podcast show kind of like a meeting, and then started doing it once a week. And we're up to, I guess, episode 110, 120. And first we did it in Los Angeles, just at this little club we got called Smod Castle. Then we took it up to the John Lovitz Comedy Club. Then we started taking it out on the road, man, and we were booking into like 2,000 seaters and stuff.
That would be entertaining as hell.
It's really good. You get to sit there and watch two dudes talk to each other, and you'd think it sounds boring, but it's really entertaining. It's passionate. Like, he goes to dark places. You're laughing at like hysterical sex jokes, and then all of a sudden he's telling you something real, something that comes out of left field where you're like, your heart's breaking for him, about him being locked in a closet, in a stranger's house while his mom went out and scored and stuff like that.
So he comes from bad users.
Yeah.
Well, I've been to a bunch of AA and NA meetings now, and it is a program. If you take it seriously, you come out the other end. Some of the best people I know in my life are people who went through that program. But I got to tell you, a guy like Jason Mewes will be a welcome speaker at an AA meeting. Because some of these guys, a lot of them are just pretentious bores. They think they're interesting, and you got to sit through it. A lot of them you get a lot out of, but it's a rare thing that you get something out of and they're entertaining and they really do have something to say. So he would be like a welcome.
Yeah, totally. I've gone to a few meetings with him, and it's true. It's like, I love storytelling. I love storytellers. When people are telling you something real, I'm even more dialed in. But there's a snobby part of me where I'm like, well, I talk for a living.
Exactly.
So, hopefully this is structured in such a way that I find it entertaining. And you forget that there's like, these aren't stories, dude. This is like my pain and my life and stuff. But it's tough to not be like, well, why did you go with that? There's a better joke to be at. I find myself like being like,
critiquing them.
I feel crappy for it.
Well, I've had guys at AA meetings come out to me and they recognize me and they go, God, they spoke and they go, oh, God, I wish I was funnier. I'm like, you're not supposed to be funny. I just hope it helped you out. Well, speaking of great stories, this is years ago. Clerks had come out chasing Amy, and you were a guy very sought after, I guess, to write scripts, and you wrote a Superman script.
Yeah.
And you were on Conan O'Brien once. This is one of my favorite stories about a lame, awful, stupid note a Hollywood executive can give you. You wrote a Superman script, and one executive gave you a note that in the scenes at the Fortress of Solitude, it seems like dead. We need other people there. And you're like, it's the Fortress of Solitude.
Yeah, like, shouldn't he
What was the exact note?
He goes, Fortress of Solitude, when Brainiac shows up, we feel like there should be Superman's robot guards or something like that. And I was like, well, they have definitely done robot guards in the comics, but it's called the Fortress of Solitude. He goes there to be alone and whatnot. And then I was like, and why would Superman need guards? Like, he's Superman.
Those are pretty tough guys.
Yeah. That was weird. That was my first time dealing with like the traditional Hollywood note system.
What a crazy typical like you get a note from a guy like that. You're like, why do I ever want to work with you again?
Or like, do you have any working familiarity with the concept? He was like the producer, John Peters, who went on to make Superman Returns. I think his name is on the new one. Yeah, he's a legend in this business. He was like, there's two things. I never want to see him in that outfit, and I never want to see him fly. And I was like, well, then why don't I just make a biopic? Because then it could be about me. Because I don't fly, and I'll never wear that outfit.
When I see, that would be, if I was a filmmaker making like this Man of Steel now, or the Batman movies or something.
Which looks amazing.
It does look amazing. I really, God, the critique from someone like you, who's not only a typical guy who's a comic book freak, you know, you love it so much, you actually, you know, turn that into, like Quentin Tarantino worked at you know, a store selling videos. You guys turned it into careers as talented writers, successful movie directors.
Questionable talent.
Well, I mean,
careers. Let's
without,
leave it at that.
Without question, talent. And you know, to make Man of Steel, if I'm the filmmaker, like hearing you guys critique it, that's rough. Have you seen any of it yet, or just trailer?
All I've seen is the commercials and the TV spots and the trailers and whatnot. There's this one image I keep talking about, which they had me the moment I saw this image. Like, I was in for, I'll go see any comic book movie.
Right.
And it's Superman, and it's Zack Snyder, and he did Watchmen, and he did 300. He's a really great director. So I'm already dialed in.
He did 300. I like that a lot.
It's a wonderful flick. But there's this moment they show in the TV spots now, and you're seeing it leak into more and more of them, where Superman is speeding Lois Lane away from danger. He's holding her. The camera's behind him, so it's on his back of his head. And she's in his arms, so she's looking over his shoulder back at whatever they're rushing away from. Right. And her performance, like Amy Adams' face, has this look of, we are speeding away from the worst thing that ever happened. And at any minute, we're going to die. But for some reason, there's this man who's holding me and flying me away. Like, everything playing across her face in 2 seconds communicated everything I love about comics.
Hooked you.
Oh, it's that feeling of, like, the only reason you read comics, I think, at least for me, maybe it's different for other people, but you want to believe that in the world, just like in a comic book, the worst moment of your life, when everything's gone to hell, someone will be there to catch you. Right. And that's what people turn to religion for. A lot of people seek that out of Jesus or whatever.
Jesus was the first superhero.
First superhero without a mask. He had a cape and stuff like that. So basically, I think that's what people look for when they read comic. They want to know that, like, in that story, man, it always happens. Someone who's like, man or woman, is just like, I'm about to die, I'm about to lose it, be crushed, whatever. Suddenly, this somebody would show up out of nowhere, selflessly, not getting paid for it, and rescue you. We all want to believe that that's possible. That's a huge dream. Seeing that come to life in that just 2 seconds of film in the trailer, I was like, take all my money, man. Like, I will watch this movie 9 times first week.
You know, I don't know if you're comfortable saying this. If you are, don't. But what is the worst comic book movie you've ever seen? Well, what really disappointed you? Like, wow.
I mean, I don't know if this would technically count as a comic book movie, but the source material is from another medium, is from cartoons. Was the only movie I've ever walked out of in the last 20 years.
No kidding.
Was the Flintstones. And I mean, I feel like a real jerk being like, I had a high bar for the Flintstones.
Nah, but I agree with you.
And I'm a huge John Goodman fan. Huge John Goodman fan. Me too. And Rick Moranis.
Right.
So, half hour, 45 minutes in this movie, I was like, life's too short. And
the cartoon was so good. The original,
it was really good. And I was
cartoon.
like, how could this possibly go wrong? and still, I was like, oh, Lord. But generally speaking, man, I'll watch any comic book movie. I've never seen one where I'm like, oh, there's an abortion of cinema. If it takes me to that place where it's like, here's somebody who's putting on a mask and trying to do the right thing, you got me. I'm there.
And clearly you can just keep making them, because Tobey Maguire made 4 Spider-Mans. Now there's new kids making them every 5 seconds.
That's the beauty of this mask, right? The mask work. You just throw a mask on somebody else under.
What do you think the hang-up was with Watchmen then?
I think for a lot of people, Watchmen, within the comic book community and those that treat pop culture very seriously and whatnot, we all acknowledge it as like, this is this great masterwork by Alan Moore. But for the rest of the world, like, I remember reading one of the reviews, I can't remember if it was Time or the New York Times, but somebody was like, this is goofy. Why does anyone think this is smart? Like, for the first time, they shined a light on it in a way where I'm like, well, no, this is brilliant. This is Alan Moore and Watchmen. And they're like, no, it's not. And they broke it down and talked about why they didn't like it. It didn't change my opinion. I still like it. But I suddenly saw from the perspective of somebody who's not married to the source material. Like, I'm predisposed to love a Watchmen movie for all the wonderful memories that reading the Watchmen graphic novel, handed to me by one of my best friends in the world, and we bonded over that. I bring that to the movie. So when I sit there and watch it, I'm like, you get close, and you got me. And he got real close.
But do the filmmakers have an obligation to people who aren't as into it or as knowledgeable about it as you are to explain it better?
But that's the thing.
And the setup in the first act.
They really shouldn't be playing to me.
Right.
Because I'm going regardless. And I'm predisposed to like the material. Who they need to play to is people like my mother, who
Right.
it's just like, I don't know anything about Superman or Krypton. Like
somehow in the
explain.
first act, show us what's going on, and then,
That's why you see a lot of origin for these movies, because they're always assuming like new customers. People have no familiarity with these characters. Batman, Superman, even Spider-Man to some degree. You go like, all right, everyone's got a passing familiarity with how they work. But then when you start introducing like the X-Men, or next they're doing, Marvel's doing Guardians of the Galaxy.
Right.
Even when they introduced Iron Man, like right now, Iron Man 3 has jumped into the top 5 of all-time highest grossing earners.
awful reviews. I never saw a movie get worse reviews.
It got some better reviews. I dug it. I
you like it?
I
Yeah.
really dug it.
The
I thought
first
it was
one was
kinda ballsy.
unreal.
But when that first one came out, dude, nobody expected anything because they're like, Iron Man. He's
Yeah.
not even like, of the Marvel characters, he's not even like in their top tier.
You
He's
got
like
Robert Downey
solid B.
Jr. playing him.
Robert Downey Jr., an actor in one of
Right.
these movies. And Jon Favreau, like, cracked the code. That
did.
movie is a very strong spine upon which Marvel has hung everything right up to the Avengers, man. It's because they got Iron Man right. And that was a flick that nobody expected anything from, and suddenly it's become the dominant. It's the standard bearer at this point.
It is.
Yeah.
Well,
and they'll be able to like cycle him out at a certain point.
Definitely.
When he's like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to run around.
Have another guy
suit.
do it, right.
They can just make him the Jarvis in the suit, like Robert Downey
That's
Jr.
true, actually,
could show
yeah,
up and not phone it in, but just not have to run around. He could still be in the movie. And they find a younger kid to move on with.
Well, unfortunately, we got to go. Kev, thanks so much for hanging out. Real quick,
Thank you
tell
for
us
having
about the Gillette thing, real quick.
Go to howdoesshave.com. You
Okay.
can watch all the theories. Vote up mine because I don't want to lose to Blossom. I can't. I got enough. I did Cop Out, Jersey Girl. I got so much shame in my life. I can't lose to Blossom. That would be the worst of the worst. But you go vote up. Their videos are really funny and whatnot. You could leave your own theories. And it's just kind of a really fun campaign.
HowDoesHeShave.com.
HowDoesHeShave.com.
Name your comic book show real quick again. How do we see
Comic
it?
Book Men. Coming
Comic
back to
Book
AMC.
Men
We just
on
got
AMC.
renewed for a 3rd season, so we'll be back in the fall.
Really good. Kev, I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank
man.
you for having us.
Thank
sir.
you so
Good
much.
seeing you.
Much luck with everything.